Okay, fine. So, all of you please mute. Let's start the class. Okay. See, what we have seen in the impulse machine, we have seen in the impulse machine that pressure at the exit of any moving blade so will be less than at the inlet. That means, so the pressure keeps dropping down. At the same time, the kinetic energy gets absorbed. The kinetic energy is absorbed in the rotor, and the pressure from inlet to exit will be dropping. But what happens in case of reaction machine? So the velocity almost it remains same, okay, but the pressure gets keeps absorbing. So in a impulse machine, kinetic energy is absorbed, pressure keeps changing, but in a reaction machine, velocity remains the same and the pressure is absorbed. At the same time, if is it possible for us to combine both so that the pressure as well as the kinetic energy both get absorbed? Okay, both get absorbed in your rotor, we'll get what is called as an impulse reaction machines. Okay, let me write that whatever I told. In an impulse machine, like that, in an impulse turbine, let me write. In a impulse turbine, what will happen? See, the pressure is almost, pressure gets, the pressure at the inlet, pressure at the exit. You have to compare that. So pressure at the exit of a moving blade is less than at the inlet. Okay, this is two things. Pressure at the exit of the moving blade. Moving blade is less than at the inlet. Slightly it will be less than it. And at the same time, the kinetic energy is absorbed. The kinetic energy is absorbed. But what happens in case of reaction machine? Okay, in a reaction machine or in a reaction turbine, so what is actually velocity almost remains same. That means there won't be any kinetic energy changes. Velocity almost remains same or constant. Okay, and what happens? The pressure energy keeps absorbed. Okay, the energy pressure energy is absorbed. This is what happens in case of a pure reaction. But what happens in case of an impulse reaction machine? An impulse reaction turbine. Here, both partly kinetic energy and pressure energy is absorbed one after the other. If I'm able to do this, actually, such type of machines we call it as impulse reaction turbines or impulse reaction machines. Now, let's try to look at what will happen. As I told, in impulse machine, the your what we call it the blades or buckets, they are like almost cup shaped. Okay, they are almost like cup shaped. But in a impulse reaction machine, your rotor will look like an aerofoil. But in impulse reaction machine also it will be like a aerofoil actually. But a slight changes will be there. That means say if I take something like a stator, I have a stator. They're all axial flow machine. That's why I'm opening up along the circumference. Say I have an aerofoil like this. Okay, this is my inlet. Let me draw some two blades. Okay, this is what I have. Then I will have a rotor. So in between, let me have a small gap between the stator and the rotor. We have a small gap. Fine. So I have a rotor. So this is my leading edge and trailing edge. Okay. Now this is what I have actually. These are the things. So this is my stator blades, and I have a set of rotor blades, and both are of airfoil cross section in case of a impulse machine. Okay, both are of a airfoil cross section in case of a impulse machine. Okay, fine. Now see, let me write this also: stator, rotor, and this is where this will be rotating. Okay, and this is fixed. So now where is my inlet actually? This is where the fluid, see, the steam will be flowing something like this. It will come like this and it will be going like this. Okay, the steam will be going in this direction. This is how your steam will be going. So one is the inlet and two is your outlet, or one is the leading edge and two is the other, what we call it as the trailing edge. Now, if I try to draw a velocity triangle for this, what will happen? Maybe let me try a combined velocity triangle. A combined velocity triangle will look something like this with a common U, which already we have seen. So I have a common U, and then I have my inlet, I have my velocity V1, then I have my VR1 like this. This is my VR1, and I'm going to close it with my VF1 and VW1. Okay, this will be my VF1 and this will be my VW1. This is my inlet velocity triangle, with this being alpha 1, this being given beta 1. So similarly, I can draw the exit velocity triangle with VR1 like this. This is my VR2. Then I have my V2, that is exit velocity. This is my V2, and I can close it with the flow velocity at the exit and the corresponding tangential velocity. So this will be my VF2 and this will be my VW2. So this is alpha 2, this is my beta 2. So this is how your velocity triangle will look like. Now, I have been telling you that in an impulse machine, so one assumption we have made. What it is actually an impulse machine, I have told you. In an most of the impulse turbine, your beta 1 is almost approximately equal to beta 2. But as I move towards a reaction type of machines, okay, for a reaction or an impulse reaction turbines or the reaction turbines, your exit blade angle will be slightly less than your beta 1. What are the impact? If your beta 2 is less than your beta 1, its effect is slightly felt on your relative velocities. Okay, what will happen because of this actually? Your VR2 will slightly become greater than your VR1. Okay, your relative velocity, which was supposed to be, see, which VR1 should have been equal to VR2. Okay, VR1 was supposed to be equal to VR2 with no friction and all. But because of this particular thing, what's happening in reaction machines, beta 2 less than your beta 1. So I could see that there is an increase in my VR2. So VR2 will be slightly greater than your VR1. I could see that particular. So this particular point of increase in your VR2, okay, VR2 which is greater than your VR1, and that is mainly because of your degree of reaction, what is called as a degree of reaction. So this particular point, So the angle beta 2 is C. Maybe what we try to do in most of the reaction machines, the angle beta 2 is made appreciably smaller. It's something like beta 1 is around 25 degrees. So beta 2, they make it around 8 to 10 degrees. Okay. For pure impulse, if I take for a pure impulse, the relative velocity of the steam at the outlet is almost like there will be almost your exit will be equal to 0.9 or 0.8 times of a VR1. Okay, that's the blade velocity coefficient we used to consider. Maybe if you go back and see in the previous classes, we had considered something called as CB1. Okay, where CB is nothing but VR2 by VR1, where friction was very high. The blade velocity coefficient, I think few people they call it as blade velocity coefficient or friction coefficient. So comparatively, that was around 0.9 or 0.95. So the your VR2 is VR2 is slightly smaller than your VR1. But in case of your reaction machine, because of the smaller beta 2, I could see these things are going to change. Okay. Now, what is your final absolute velocity? Your final absolute velocity. Okay. Your final, because of this particular thing, what will happen? Your final absolute velocity, if my VR2 is greater than VR1, okay, VR2 is greater than VR1, your the absolute velocity, the change, the maybe what we can call it as the changes in the velocity of that particular steam, okay, steam will be slightly smaller, or what we call it as a V2 will be slightly smaller. It has to be pushed in. Okay. Now CR1 is smaller than your CR2. The velocity triangle will change like anything. Okay, what will happen if I try to draw it actually? If I try to redraw it, so the velocity triangle will be something like this. If I could look at this, this is my U. I have a this is my VR. Okay, this is my V1, and this is my VR1. Okay, this is my VR1, and I have my betas. Look at this. And I want to go with respect to betas. Okay, this is my beta 1, VF1, whatever it may be. Now I'm making this corresponding VR2 much smaller. That means this angle, no, this is I'm making very smaller. So this becomes bigger. Look at this. This particular VR2 becomes smaller. This is my beta 2. It's much smaller. So because of this particular thing, what I could see, this is my V2. So V2 has a significant effect. V2 has a significant effect because of your VR2 greater than by VR1. So the velocity, the exit velocity gets suffered by a small quantity. So there, it will give rise to what is called as an impulsive force. Okay, it will give rise to what is called as an impulsive force, and that impulsive force, if I try to draw it actually, that impulsive force, let me draw the, say for example, if I try to call this as some A, if I call this as some B, and C, D, so if I try to close it, close it, this is what I'm getting. So E, F. So see, V1 is there. V1 will suffer some kind of an action. So impulse action is there. That means I could see that there is, I am going to use a different color so that it will be easy for you. Somewhere it will go in this direction. I could see this particular. It is going to see a what is called as an impulse action. Okay, the velocity. So that particular thing we call it as. So maybe if you call EF G, let me call this as point G. And if I try to join your A to G, this is what we can see. So if there is an opposite impulse force which is equal to the quantity, the length of that particular, it's a magnitude because velocity triangle, no, it's the length of the magnitude. So B into G, that is mainly because of impulse. And see, one particular thing, what we have to see, no? See, you have to see that because of this particular quantity, I could see that there is a resultant force. So there is a resultant force which can be obtained because of this particular thing. If that will be equal to joining this one. If I draw to the scale, this is the what I'm going to get. It makes some angle. So let me call that as some psi or phi or whatever it may be. It makes an angle, some psi or whatever it may be. So this angle, this is what we are going to see. See, why would all these things happen? See, one particular thing is mainly because of expansion of steam in the moving blades. Okay, and the steam velocity is increasing because of this particular. Then steam velocity, which was supposed to be maybe if I d to g relative velocity. Okay, so relative velocity. So relative velocity is from VR2 or something, that the exit. Okay, is increased from, so d to g, if we call the, yeah, d to g VR2, but what it has happened, VR2 being greater, so this will go up to f, it will become df. So the increase in outlet relative velocity will gives rise to some kind of reaction force. Okay, reaction force, and this is that particular reaction force. Okay, this is that particular reaction force. So some kind of maybe reaction force is there. If I try to draw a force diagram for it, actually, what will happen if I try to, if this is the blade, let me put a blade. Suppose if this is the blade, okay, let me explain. If I put a blade like this, okay, this is the blade. So I do have an impulse force. Let me call this as an impulse force. Okay, this is my impulse force. Okay, at the same time there is a reaction force. So reaction force in this opposite direction. So this is my reaction force. Okay, this usually, see the reaction force, I was supposed to write here. Okay, I was supposed to write here. Yeah, I was supposed to write the reaction force here. Instead of that, I'm writing it there because I just too close to get the triangle. That's it. So this is the impulse force, and that's the reaction force, and I can combine this to get a resultant one. Okay, this is my resultant force. How did I obtain? Simply by joining the your maybe the tail of your reaction force and the head of your impulse force. That's a velocity triangle. That's it. So now you try to see. So if this is the point, see impulse, all those things. If I take this, yeah, this is your B. Okay, this is your. So I'm trying to write capital B is this point, capital G is this point, and capital F is this point. So I'm writing with respect to BGF, or you can use whatever it may be. Okay. Now this resultant force. See, I have this resultant force. Can this result force can be resolved into two things? Okay, so the resultant force can be resolved into, if the same, let me take the same blade to the right hand side. Let me take the same blade to the right hand side. Redraw the blade. Okay, this is my blade, whatever I have. Okay, this is my blade, and I do have the resultant force. This is my resultant force. Okay, this is my resultant force. Okay, any resultant force will have two components. One will be in the tangential direction, other one will be in the, because this is an axial flow machine, so that will be the axial direction. So if I take this particular, this is B, this is F, so I can resolve into two components, one in this direction. Okay, this is your tangential one, and other one in the axial direction. So this is your tangential force, and this is your in the flow direction, that is your axial force. Okay, and what we are stretching, what are these actually? These are your force diagrams, that's it. These are your force diagrams with representing your velocities. See, something, what I am trying to do, see, I am trying to draw something parallel to Fg. Look at this reaction force, no? See, this is Fg is parallel to this one. Okay, this Bg is parallel to this one. Okay, and whatever I'm going to get this resultant, this is parallel to this one. That's it. I'm not doing anything. Just I'm trying to go and complete your velocity diagram representing your forces on it. Representing your forces on it. The increase in C, what we could see actually, I could clearly see there is a slight increase in the relative velocity. That is giving rise to this reaction force, which is C, which is equal to maybe FB, yeah, resultant force, which is equal to the resultant force, that is FB. Okay. Now, I do have the impulse force, I have an impulse force, and I have a reaction force, that is Bg and Fg. So, the resultant force will be equal to your Fb or Bf, whatever it may be. This resultant force, I have two components, one in the tangential direction, other in the your axial direction or in the flow direction. Now, if I try to write your corresponding force or the tangential force for it, actually, it should be equal to your resultant force multiplied by, so equal to your FB or your mass flow. They call this as equal to your mass flow. They call that as an m dot or mass flow rate multiplied by your tangential velocity or world velocity Vw1 plus or minus Vw2 into your relative your blade velocity, which is u. So that will give your work done. Then multiplied by, so maybe divided by 1000 or something, you'll get the in terms of watts. So that means whatever the definition we have for your tangential force or work, whatever you defined in your Euler equation, same thing I can write it here. The only difference is actually that m dot or the resultant force. The resultant force will be equal to your m dot. That's it. Okay. That means, let me write that. So the impulse, so if I consider the impulse, the tangential force, the tangential force is given by, so what is it actually, is equal to, okay, what is this m dot? M dot is nothing but your resultant force, which is your FB, this one. Okay, that is m dot into Vw1 minus Vw2. So your minus of minus, I can write it as plus. Then what is your work done actually? If I call this as equation 1, so work done per second or whatever it may be, work done W is equal to your tangential force into U. So this work done will be equal to m dot into U into, okay, Vw1 minus Vw2, which is also work done per second, is also equal to the power developed or whatever it may be. Okay. Now, this is about the impulse. See, maybe already we have seen this with respect to the blade efficiency or gross stage efficiency in my impulse machines. But when you come to the reaction machines, see, when you come to the reaction turbine, see the velocity, the flow velocity per degree of reaction or for a set of reaction blades we need to consider, and that is based on what is called as your degree of reaction. Okay, you need to look into what is called as the degree of reaction. It's for the pure reaction machine. Degree of reaction, I think usually we call this as defined by R. What is it actually? There is something called as an ideal one in the moving blades to the ideal one in both fixed and moving blades. Okay, what happens in case of an, see, if I try to draw the THS diagram, let me put the HS diagram, then you will understand what is happening. So if I try to put an HS diagram for it, okay, let me put this HS diagram. Let me have a dome. This is my dome. Then I have two different pressures actually. Let me, two stages, okay. So single stage, okay. I have an isentropic, whatever it may be. If I call this as P1, P2, P3. Okay. Now there is an, see, if I consider this as the blade, and we have something called as in the stator. Okay, we have something in the stator, we have something in the rotor or nozzle. We call this as a nozzle. So if I try to expand it, how is the expansion taking? It's a pure asentropic expansion. Maybe let me consider it is in the from the superheated condition. So this is what I could see. Okay, a simple vertical drop. Okay, if I call this as some 1, it will go to 2 dash. Okay, then it will go to 3 dash. If it is an actual thing, okay, if it's an actual thing, how it will go? It will go from 1 and it will go like this. So this is the point with respect to this thing. So this will be your 2 and this will be your 3. Then what is this isentropic? See, this is your isentropic drop in the nozzle, and this is your isentropic drop in the blade. The isentropic drop in the blade or delta H. So okay, this is your isentropic delta H change. Okay, that means what is your degree of reaction? R is defined as is the ratio of isentropic enthalpy drop. Okay, the ratio of isentropic enthalpy drop in the blade. Okay, moving blade, in the moving blade, in the moving blade to the, okay, there is a ratio. So combined isentropic enthalpy drop, isentropic enthalpy drop in the nozzle or stator, isentropic enthalpy drop in the nozzle, or we call it as stator, plus isentropic enthalpy drop in the blade or a rotor. Okay, if I take the ratio of it, we call that as degree of reaction. That is, R is equal to delta H isentropic in the blade divided by delta H isentropic in the nozzle plus delta H isentropic in the blade. So the combined together, okay, isentropic heat drop in the moving blades or simple blades, or fixed blades or the nozzle or state. So we will get what is the ratio of it. We'll get the we'll get what is called as the degree of reaction. Now for a pure impulse machine, what will happen? So for a degree of reaction is 0. Why it is so? The value of the isentropic enthalpy drop in the blade or the nozzle, we have to consider that. So what happens in that? So blade and your nozzle or blade, it is so why it will be, see, in the pure they say why it is 0 actually. The isentropic enthalpy drop in the blade is 0 because I have only isentropic enthalpy drop in the nozzle, because whatever energy that's going to take place, it is only in the nozzle. So I can write for a pure impulse machine, for a pure impulse machine or turbine, R is 0. Okay, but for a pure reaction turbine, R is unity. What it is actually here, the isentropic in the blade is 0. Here delta H isentropic in the nozzle is 0. So if I try to put it in your equation, whatever equation we have, we'll be getting it. That's how we'll be able to calculate the degree of reaction. Now let us consider the number of stages of an impulse reaction machine. What do you mean by see? If I consider any impulse reaction machines, okay, if I consider any impulse reaction machine, what I have actually, I do have one rotor, one stator, one rotor, one stator. So in that case, what I need to do actually, I need to consider what is called as maybe some of the things which we need to consider. Maybe what will happen with respect to the nozzle or nozzle efficiency. Because I do have a nozzle. See, in case of an impulse reaction machine, I do have the set of nozzles, then I do have a set of rotors. So separately, I need to look at the nozzle efficiency, then I have to look at the blade efficiency, then combined together, I should be able to get the expression for the degree of reaction. The degree of reaction in terms of maybe your psi. So psi is nothing but your carryover coefficient. Because the carryover coefficient psi has a lot of things over here. The isentropic heat drop in the nozzle or the blade, the isentropic heat drop in the rotor or your maybe what we call the blade. So all these things we have to consider. Okay, expression for, and one more thing which we have to look at. See, in most of the reaction machine, as I told that your beta 2 is less than your beta 1, and that will lead to what is called as your VR2 slightly greater than your VR1. As the steam expands, okay, as the steam expands, the specific volume, I could see there is an increase in the specific volume. You can verify it looking at the steam tables. If the pressure is dropping, the specific volume increases. And all these things leads to an increase in the area progressively. So why? That's the reason why in turbine we see the increasing cross section, just like a diffuser. As the steam expands, the specific volume increases. With a drop in the pressure, the area has to increase progressively, or just like a diverging section of a nozzle or something like that. Now, when you try to look into that actually, what is important here? Let me write that. So as the steam expands, the steam expands, the specific volume that is small v increases. What it is actually, that means P is dropping, the specific volume is increasing. So this will lead to what is called as the area has to increase progressively. There can't be a sudden increase, but it has to increase just like a diffuser. Just like a diffuser. This is one thing. And the second thing is actually, if I consider the mass flow rate, what is mass flow rate? It is actually rho into A into velocity. So here, I need to consider the flow area. Okay, I need to consider the flow area because that is the direction in which the flow is happening. Or I can write area into velocity of the flow divided by specific volume, because your specific volume is reciprocal of your density of your steam. Okay, density of the steam. So these things you have to consider when we are trying to obtain the expression for it. Now we have different maybe efficiencies with respect to impulse machines. Okay, different expression for different efficiencies are there. One such efficiency is your already we have defined what is your nozzle efficiency. What is it actually? Nozzle efficiency is nothing but your ratio of your kinetic energy to isentropic enthalpy drop in the nozzle. Okay, let me look at some of the expressions for, just I think we have another 10 minutes. Expressions for efficiencies. Expression for efficiencies. One of the efficiency we will look at today. Okay, the first efficiency is the, here you see the stator or nozzle efficiency. Stator or nozzle efficiency. So now this happens in, see, some they call this as fixed blade efficiency. Fixed blade efficiency also they call, both are same. Okay, what is it actually? Already we have defined this nozzle efficiency. It is nothing but change in your kinetic energy, that is V1 square minus V2 square by 2 divided by your isentropic enthalpy drop in the nozzle. Okay, in the nozzle. Or I can, if you want, I can rearrange it. The nozzle efficiency is equal to, okay, I can write. And also, if I try to consider the carryover coefficient, okay, if I try to consider the carryover coefficient, your psi, so if I consider the carryover coefficient, let me consider psi as the carryover coefficient, then I can write V1 square minus psi into V2 square divided by 2 into delta H isentropic of the nozzle. So let me call this as equation number 1. This is equation number 2, considering the carryover coefficient. Or I can write your delta H isentropic of the nozzle is equal to V1 square minus psi into V2 square divided by efficiency of the nozzle. So let me call this as equation number. Okay. So this, let me take it as 2. One equation is enough. Okay. Let me call this as equation number 2. Okay. Now let us try to, already we know this velocity triangles. Already we know the velocity triangles. Let's try to redraw the velocity triangle and use the trigonometric principle and try to apply the your, what we call it as, in terms of your speed ratio. Okay. Here one particular thing, speed ratio, what we are going to consider in case of your reaction machine is actually, we are going to take with respect to VR2. See, speed ratio, we call that as some phi 2 or something. Anyhow, phi is there. Okay. Phi 2 or something which we are going to consider. And that is with respect to your, phi is nothing but the speed ratio with respect to u by v1. But I can take something else as one more kind of a speed ratio. And that's kind of a speed ratio we call that as, that is with respect to your exit. Okay. So that particular thing. So maybe phi 2, this is with respect to relative speed ratio. Okay. Now, after substituting this relative speed ratio in your isentropic enthalpy drop, then finding the blade efficiency, then putting in your degree of reaction and obtaining the expression for the R is what we are going to, we were to get it actually. So anyhow, fine. So we'll stop it here because I have a class at 12:10. Maybe another ATD class is there. I need some break for it. Okay, we'll stop it.